Ah. Hello everybody, we're back with another one of these videos that we do. We're in the Unlicensed Show. I've got a new lighting set up. I've got a nice little bar above my head which is illuminating me in soft, nice lighting. This is mostly for art videos because whenever it gets dark in an art video I start moving it in 20 frames a second. So we're going to keep it at this. Lena is suddenly becoming very conscious of his lighting. And today we are discussing a film that Lennon picked for us generously. He picked Ghost Rider from 2007, starring Nicolas Cage. And he is now taking a long drink. So before we even start, I was going to watch this film last night, but I didn't watch it last night because we were on video games until 2 in the morning, and I looked at the length of this movie on Netflix, and it is an hour and 50 minutes, and I just looked at it and I said, absolutely not. And then I went to bed, and I got it this morning, and I watched the movie.
First thing to do in the morning is watch.
Not first thing in the morning. I had a shower first. I had to prepare myself. I had to. You see, it didn't help last night. That I was also deeply enraged after we had finished playing video games. So I chose. I felt like I couldn't be analytical in that headspace. But
you're welcome.
I did write one note last night on the movie before having watched it. And it was because I looked at it on Netflix and I was like, that director's name looks familiar. And so the director's name is Mark Steven Johnson. And I was like, why do I recognize that name? And I was like, oh no. Oh no. And I checked. And it's because you have unwittingly picked another of Mark... I, in the past, picked one of Mark Steven Johnson's directorial triumphs in the past, being Daredevil 2003. And would you like to know that after completing this masterpiece of stage and cinema that is Ghost Rider 2007, Mark Steven Johnson did not make another film for 11 years.
No, I wonder why that is.
And the next film that he made was Christopher Robin, the Disney film starring Ewan McGregor, which is just an odd little piece of trivia for you. But yeah.
How'd you go from Ghost Rider to Christopher Robin?
Well, it was more like Ghost Rider, deep contemplation, then Christopher Robin. But yeah, so this is where we're at. So I'm just gonna, before we even start anything, I'm gonna leave my notes for a second, go back into our texts, and see the text that you sent me.
As soon as I finish the movie.
As soon as you finish the movie. So there was. I can also tell that while you were watching this film, you were desperately trying to think of anything else because you were also texting me while watching the film.
Yeah, I think I just had the phone open like this, just like.
And yeah, so one of the notes you sent me was "kill me."
Yep.
And then as soon as you finished the film, you sent me, "I finished the film. That was absolutely," and then next line, "crap," which I have highlighted in our messages.
Yeah, I can see it.
Yeah. So. Yeah. So where do we start?
It was a horrible, horrible, horrible piece of film. It was somewhat entertaining because of the goofiness in it, but like Ghost Rider, fucking with the nice jacket scene.
So what would you say if I told you that I actually really enjoyed watching this film today? I don't know what happened. I don't know what broke in my mind, but I actually quite enjoyed watching this film. I don't know what's wrong. Because it felt like I was watching this film and I was like, you know what? This isn't bad. I was like, this isn't terrible. based on the other films we watched, I mean, obviously the last film we watched was Batman, which is obviously a good movie, but
Mhm.
we watched fucking Daredevil and Fant Four Stick, and as compared to Daredevil, this is a significantly better film. And in terms of the quality, it's most comparable to Daredevil of the films that we've discussed because
Yeah.
it's obviously it's got the same kind of it's just coated head to toe in schlock. Like
Yeah.
it's
The whole
pure
thing was slop, but
it's
it was like
pure cheeseball schlock, and it's like it's just
I just really like the like every scene that had like the actual Ghost Rider character on it.
yeah.
Not Nicolas Cage, but like, it was great. And also, yeah, spotted straight away the little like champagne glass of M&Ms.
Mm,
Right away, I spotted it right away. I was like, why the fuck is he drinking M&Ms? They're all drinking beer and like champagne and
out of a
wine
wine
and stuff.
glass, like just very strange things. There's plenty of strange things that Nicolas Cage does in this movie, which I can only assume were his idea,
Yeah.
because I've never. I mean, I've read a couple of Ghost Rider comics in my life, and I've never seen any of this stuff in it. So, I mean. So, did you write notes? Because you were very evasive on that question before we began.
I didn't write a lot. I kind of wrote everything on like the opening segment with
Okay,
his dad, and
right.
then everything else I was kind of like, huh?
So, right. Let's
But
get into this.
I have mental notes, I suppose. I know a lot of the.
So, I
I
suppose
remember a lot of the movie.
I'll be taking front and center then. So, my first note obviously is same director as Daredevil, Joy.
Yeah.
And then my next note was during the logos at the start of the movie, where I was like, "Oh, this is a Sony movie, right?" And I just said, "Oh, this is one of the earlier examples why Sony shouldn't be allowed to make superhero films."
Yeah.
Um, yeah, like so. I want you to bear in mind that this film was such a disaster that Sony didn't even try to renew the license on this film. There is a Ghost Rider sequel, but I actually don't know if it was made by Sony or not. I'm not sure on that. For some reason, I have it in my mind that it was like Lionsgate or something. I don't know. It was like practically a straight to DVD movie. Um, but yeah, it's a weird one. Um, and oh god, I was gonna say something there. But
The
something.
opening credits for me, sorry, the opening credits for me were since I watched this movie in 144p,
Yes.
I didn't have a great view of the opening credits. It was just kind of like pixels.
Yes.
So it's not like I could have taken notes on the intro,
No.
but it looked fiery.
So let's get into this. So my first choice, my first note here of the actual film was Sam Elliott narration, a bold choice even with decent sound mixing, because at the best of times you can't understand what Sam Elliott is saying in a movie, um, and he is the narrator of this film, and he delivers every line of exposition in this film. So there's a lot of stuff which just you just miss. You just don't understand what he's saying.
Yeah.
Um, and here is another sign that we were watching a film by the same creative genius that brought us Daredevil, and it was black and white jump scares mixed with random frames from later in the film. Where have I seen
Yeah.
this before? Um, and then we just keep cutting back and forth to this one shot of Peter Fonda, just expressionless. And it keeps like zooming in on him and then doing like the ghoul face on him every now and then. This is all
Uh,
like just
Poorly CGI
it's just
ghoul
terrible. The
face.
ghoul face. They do the ghoul face so many times throughout the film, and it looks terrible every time they do it. And it's weird because otherwise the CGI in the film isn't bad. It's like really not
No,
bad at all. Um,
like it's 2000s. It's like kind of
I mean, the
rubbery, but
movie is
it's good.
2007. It's the
Yeah.
year before Iron Man and The Dark Knight. And like it's in that period of time where CGI is getting good. But it's I mean we're at the point now where it's gotten really bad again. We're practically at like 90s level of CGI in a lot of movies nowadays. But that's neither here nor there. But yeah. So then my next note was what a strange opening credit sequence, because we get our cold open of Sam Elliott's narration, along with our explanation of what the MacGuffin is, being the scroll, the contract, and
Yeah.
then we get this the like practically the X-Men intro from the movies kicks in, of where we're just seeing this POV shot of the bike zooming through a fiery hell location, possibly, even though we don't see hell in the movie. You never see hell. As a matter of fact, I don't even think they say hell in the film. I
No,
actually
they
don't think
don't
they say
mention.
hell in this film, which is strange.
I don't sure. Do they mention the devil? I don't think so.
They don't. I don't think they call him the devil.
Yeah.
Weird thing is that in this film, Mephisto is referred to as Mephistopheles. They use his full name for some reason, even though in the comics he's only ever really referred to as Mephisto. And he's not a big red man like he is in the
Mhm.
comics. He's just Peter
He's just,
Fonda.
he's just an
He's just
old.
Peter Fonda. Same way Blackheart isn't a big purple man. He is. He's just Wes Bentley. There's
Yeah.
He's just Wes Bentley. There's not much more to it. He's Wes Bentley in a trench coat.
Doesn't look like how he does in
No,
the
this
comics
was
or
that.
even in Marvel vs. Capcom.
This is that period of time of where superhero films were deeply ashamed that they were superhero films. They were based on a comic book. This was still in that period. It's on the tail end of it, the very tail end of it, and it's
Yeah.
very strange because Nicolas Cage has said in the past that he was a big fan of Ghost Rider, and that's why he wanted to do the movie. Um, One of the things which I wanted to bring up was that this was during a time of where Nicolas Cage was making a variety of bizarre financial decisions. Uh, so he did this movie, and he did it because he was a big fan of Ghost Rider. He had a huge comic book collection at the time. He had some of the like some incredibly rare comics, which obviously he went into debt at a certain point, and so he sold all that stuff.
Oh.
Um, and one of the things he also sold was his pyramid, because Nicolas Cage lived a very lavish lifestyle, and he still does, but you know he's not in debt anymore, so I suppose he can afford to. Um, but yeah, so this was during that period of time where he was just doing some very strange things, such as owning a pyramid, which he at the time had intended on being buried in when he died. I can only
Like an
imagine.
actual pyramid, like an
It
actual.
was in Las Vegas, but it was a pyramid. It was a pyramid.
Okay.
um,
Fucking celebrities and their fucking pyramids.
yes. So now we get into the flashback. I was kind of all over the place with a lot of my notes with some of the parts of this film. So I kind of skimmed through. I kind of skimmed through the flashback a little bit. So the first thing that I made note of was young versions of our characters that don't even vaguely resemble our main actors.
Yeah. You
um,
couldn't point at me like that's younger Nicolas Cage.
it's just they just don't look anything like them. It's not
Yeah.
that looks nothing like Nicolas Cage. Looks nothing like Eva Mendes. They don't look anything like. And
Yeah, when
so
they, so, yeah, when they,
and then what's weird is that later in they continue to show like flashes of this flashback throughout the movie,
and they
and
still look nothing alike.
and they also have like pictures of the younger versions of them. They look nothing like them.
Yeah.
It's just really strange, but it's typical for this type of film. And so my next note was I can't tell you how invested I am in this romance plotline, and it's because I'm not. Um,
Yeah, it was forced.
so there's the elephant in the room of this movie is that I actually kind of enjoyed watching this movie.
Yeah.
Um, but by far the worst part of this film is the romance plotline because it is a sizable part of the movie, and our two main actors have less than zero chemistry.
Yeah.
um,
Like they're barely on screen together for more than like 5, maybe
it's
10
not even
minutes.
that's not even necessarily it. It's that they've just got nothing going on. Like
Yeah.
you couldn't convince me that these people are romantically involved.
No, but Alex, they were in love when they were younger. That's why. Because the plot
The
makes it
plot
that way.
demands it. The plot demands it.
Exactly. The plot
And
demands you to think that they're deeply in love because they've been in love since they were like teenagers, and then he ran away.
And it's
He
this
died
it's
there.
it's this type of thing that is why we don't get romance plot lines in movies anymore, because movies like this ruined it. They spoiled the plot. They
Yeah,
they spoiled the plot, and everyone else doesn't want to touch this crap anymore. Even though there's nothing wrong with a romance plot line, especially if you actually do it halfway decently. But the problem is all these movies just put it in because it's a thing that you do in the movie. You just put the
yeah.
romance plot line in. It's just cookie cutter plot lines that you just drag and drop into your script.
Everyone loves a bit of romance, but when it's written right, people love it more.
Yeah.
Something wrong.
So my next note was plot cancer. Um, Dad has cancer because the plot demands it. This is a thing in the comics, obviously. This is part of Johnny Blaze's origin story. His dad gets cancer, and then he makes a deal with the devil to cure his dad of cancer, and then he dies anyways. Um, so my next note was something along the lines of the devil can only appear by blowing out the lights in any location he's in.
Yeah,
So, and that happens multiple times throughout this movie. Anytime he appears or disappears, lights explode. It
yeah,
happens many times throughout this film, and it is really weird. You would think that certain people would realize they're dealing with the devil up to a certain point. Also, this man is like walking evil. Like he just is like he's not in any way trying to be subtle about the fact that he is evil. And the fact that Johnny Blaze is too stupid to realize that he's clearly dealing with fucking Satan. it's
yeah.
it's quite ridiculous.
He's like,
So,
"Oh, sell me your soul and save your father." He's like, "Okay." No,
you
what
know,
was it? It was no, it was Name Me Your Price,
yeah.
your soul, and he was like, "Ah, you're a nutcase."
And so there is a point during this scene where lightning strikes and we
Yeah,
see Mephisto's shadow, and I just wrote, "Ooh, spooky gremlin shadow." His weird, like fucking hobbly gremlin shadow in the
and
background.
John, yeah, and Johnny Blaze is like,
He doesn't see
no,
that. He is looking away. I did specifically go back
what?
a little bit and checked. He's not looking in that direction because whenever the lightning strikes, he looks away to where the lightning came from.
How
So it's like,
convenient.
yeah. So there is a bit in this scene whenever Johnny Blaze asks a reasonable question, which is Mephisto's like, "Oh, I'll cure your dad of cancer," and Johnny Blaze is like, "How?" And so he's like, "How isn't important?" And then he never questions it again. I was like, "You were onto something for a second there, but you buried the lead a little bit there." And so my next note here was how is always incredibly important. If that would be the stopping point. Explain to me the A to B process of how you exactly intend on curing my dad of cancer. Are you walking around with the cure to cancer in your pocket? Because as my understanding is, as a person in 2007, is that, or possibly earlier, because this is a flashback, we're either 10, 20, 30, or 40 years in the past, depending on the age of our actors.
Yeah,
So, you know, who knows? But so yeah, he just doesn't question it. And so my next note here was, Johnny, you are obviously dealing with the devil here. He's practically walking around with a sign on his back that says Satan on it. Just never questions it for some reason. Never questions it. And yeah, so he hands him the fucking contract, and he's like starting to read it, and then a little bit of blood gets on it because there's like spikes all over this contract, and he's like, "This doesn't seem evil in any way," and then the blood gets on it, and he's like, he takes the contract, he's like, "That'll do," and again, it's like. So there's a point later in this film which I'm going to bring up. I'm going to bring up this specific moment again of the blood getting on the contract, and that's enough for old Satan, because there's a point later in this film whenever a deal is changed, and for some reason, as we've seen earlier in the film, Mephisto will bend the rules to suit his liking, as he does at the start of this. Johnny Blaze doesn't need to explicitly sign the contract; he gets a bit of his blood on it, and that's good enough.
yeah,
But there's a point later in the film where this will come up again. So my next note here was, warning lights should be going off in your mind as soon as this man says he's healthy. There are death flags going off left and right here, of where it's like fucking his dad may as well have come in and said, "Son, I feel like I'm gonna die today." Feel like I may
I
just
feel like
die.
$1,000,000. I feel like $1,000,000. Something may go wrong.
2 days away from retirement. And yeah, then there's the spooky Satan music.
Yeah.
And then obvious death is obvious. Just tell him you're going to die within the next 5 minutes. Why don't you? And
There's
then
one stunt, son. There's one job.
this is my last one. I'll never do it again.
Oh,
And
you're
so
damn right about that one.
the way that he dies is that he eats shit. He doesn't even do the jump. He swerves and falls off and he dies.
I was in bits when I saw that.
He just eats shit. That's how he
didn't even hit the
dies.
fire.
He doesn't even make it to the fire. He just falls off and dies. And so
He's a motorcyclist. I think he would have survived more. You know, like worse falls. He slightly topples off the bike. He's like, man, this is too much for me.
And so now we get the death scene, which is obvious, and then Johnny Blaze immediately realizes, oh yeah, it's that dirty deal that I made, and he still doesn't quite realize that it's Satan that he has made a deal with yet. So he decides, I'm going to ride off and then chase after the devil, and then Satan jump scares Johnny into eating shit and dying as well. And he crashes his bike because Satan jump scares him, and then Satan, I interpret that as him bringing him back to life because it seemed like he had died. And so
he didn't fall that hard.
He didn't fall that hard, but the prior scene, a man died from a small turn. He took a turn wrong and died. So Right now, the next note that I have is an important recurring thing throughout the movie, and it's the pointing. It's him fucking pointing like this, in just constantly doing that throughout the film.
Yeah.
And so this is a thing that he does for some reason. He just does that. I don't know why.
Doesn't do it in the comics at all.
I don't know. I've not read enough Ghost Rider, but it's not like a big thing of Ghost Rider like pointing at people throughout the film. It's just weird. It's just very strange. He does it a lot. He does it a lot throughout the film. And
it's almost in the fucking the double digits the amount of time he does it.
Yeah, like he does it a lot throughout this film, and it's just really weird. So the next thing I have to say here is that this man wouldn't know a bad deal if it stared him in the face. Like, I mean, technically speaking, he didn't make a deal. He got kind of fucked over, which isn't really how it is in the comics. I think in the comics there's a lot more explicitly that he does make the deal.
Yeah.
And so, right, so then he abandons Roxanne. He abandons his romantic interest for some reason. Like, partly the devil says, like, oh, you can't have any of these things, but he doesn't make him. He just says you can't.
Yeah.
He doesn't make him, and then he just fucking leaves.
He goes for it, and Devil's like, well, fuck.
And that's the thing. He just does it later on in the film, and there's no consequence.
Yeah.
There's nothing. There's no consequence to this. He just does it.
Why can't they do it?
He fucking rides off at the start and he's like, oh, we can't do this. And it's like, why?
It
Why?
says it here.
Like, this is fucking stupid. So, okay. Then we fast forward 10, 20, 30, or 40 years into the future, where Johnny Blaze has now spontaneously turned into Nicolas Cage. And my first note from this is Crazy Train? Question mark. Because they just start playing Crazy Train all of a sudden. And I was a bit taken aback.
Yeah, I will say that as well, actually.
There's a lot of music in this film.
Pretty good music in this movie.
Even their original music isn't bad. Like, the guitar stuff is like, it's alright. It's alright. There's clearly, like, they're trying to do a Western thing with the music, because there's a lot of, like, Spanish guitar. Well, we'll get to that. Don't you worry about that. So my next note here was, okay, the movie started. He's already doing weird shit with his hands. Because as soon as he has become Nick Cage, the song starts, and then he starts doing this shit, like, on the bike before he even does the stunt. And so then I just said bad slow motion, which is going to be a recurring thing throughout this movie, is because he does the jump, and then we get some really bad slow motion. And I can tell you exactly why this slow motion is bad. So, in a movie, the way that slow motion is done is that you film at a high frame rate and then you slow it down to the same frame rate as the rest of the film, thus creating slow motion. A film is typically in 24 frames a second, so you would film with a high frame rate camera and then you would slow that footage down to 24 frames a second, thus giving you slow motion. And it would look as smooth as the rest of the movie. That's not what they've done here. They've just lowered the frame rate of like 24 FPS footage, so it's like weird and shuddery. It looks shit. It looks terrible. And they do this slow motion several times throughout the film. And what's weird is this wasn't a problem in Daredevil, and that movie's 90% slow motion.
Yeah.
They had normal fine slow motion. This was a lost art by the time that Ghost Rider came around. Apparently, they forgot how to do it. They lost the technology. I then wrote, "Oh shit, he's dead again," because he crashes and his helmet explodes.
Nice, and he just comes back to life.
And here's one of the things that you texted me about. Was my next note is, wait, is he supposed to have an accent?
Yeah.
And he has a very inconsistent Texan accent throughout this film. It
changes so much.
Woefully inconsistent. Because in the flashback, the actor is clearly doing an accent. As is the actor playing Roxanne. But Eva Mendes is not doing an accent in this movie. And Nicolas Cage is only half of the time doing an accent.
He kind of forgets to do it.
He does it sometimes. He only does it really in these earlier scenes. He kind of stops doing it by the end of the movie. He's not got an accent at the end of this movie. He's just speaking like normal Nicolas Cage.
Yeah, he's back to being Nicolas Cage again by the end of the movie.
It's like a slow transformation. So right, and yeah, the next note that I had was that for some reason Donal Logue is in all these kinds of movies. He plays the like friend character in this.
Yeah.
I don't even know if that character had a name, to be honest.
Dad?
No, the friend character.
The friend character. Oh, he was the guy like, oh, you can't be doing fucking.
Yeah, the friend character. His one legally permitted friend in this movie
Mac.
who dies.
His name is Mac.
Yes. I was under the impression that he didn't have a name. But yeah, Donal Logue for some reason is in all these kinds of movies. He's in Blade as well. He's in just all these movies for some reason. He just appears in these movies randomly. I guess that's just the type of film that he's in. So
just throw Donal in there. We need to fill it. We need to fill it with something.
So next, here's the very important note: the wine glass.
Yes. Thing that you told me about maybe
a
month prior.
This is an image burned into my mind of him eating Skittles, M&Ms, or some sort of hard-shelled jelly through a wine glass. And so there's two weird, very, very weird things that are a part of Johnny Blaze's character in this film. One is that he consumes lots of jellies because he specifically says he doesn't drink, which is an important line of dialogue for some reason. This is a part of his character.
Jellies are a substitute.
His substitute. He just puts jellies in a wine glass, and that's enough, I suppose. Then his other thing is his deep, intrinsic fascination with monkeys.
Yeah.
Because whenever they're going through the TV channels, he says there is a Howler Monkey special on the Discovery Channel that he wants to watch, and he's very invested in this concept. So my note here is Howler Monkey special? ? Why does he love monkeys? He really wants to watch the monkeys. That's like an escalation, all while I was writing this one note.
And he doesn't get to watch the monkeys.
He doesn't get to watch the monkeys then, but he does later. This is important. It's character developing. He gets to watch the monkeys later. It's setup and payoff. He gets to watch the goddamn monkeys. So, right. But on the TV, what does show up is spooky, scary skeletons, and they do the teeth chattering, which is important for some reason. This comes back for some reason. So, right. Then, he does a skeleton. They're like, "Oh, you got an angel washing over you," and he says, "No, it's something else." And then there's the lightning, and there's a skeleton face on him, and we're supposed to be in our chairs going, "Oh," like that, because we're so frightened
So
of Ghost
frightened of
Rider.
this guy.
This movie is
He's so
15 rated
scary.
for horror.
He's so scary.
I shit you not, this movie is rated 15 because of horror imagery. Because there's
There's
no
nothing
violence.
horror.
There's no violence really, and there's no blood. I suppose technically there's violence whenever he kills people with the chain, but that's not like particularly violent.
There's no Why is it rated 15?
It was rated 15. I remember this specifically because
There's no swearing in it or anything. Or
because like the cinemas at the time were, this was one of those movies where it was like, nowadays no one really gives a shit, they'll let you into whatever movie, they don't even check
Yeah.
anymore. But because like I've been to fucking movies which are like fucking 18 rated, and there'll be like fucking children in the audience, and I'm like, fuck, I don't care. But like this was at the time whenever they were very diligent about checking that for some reason, and yeah, this was one of those movies for some reason that I remember. But so right now we just get a random scene of Blackheart. This is our first introduction to Blackheart, where he's walking around in the desert and there is fire rain for some reason. And we get a little Wes Bentley jump scare of where he does his bad ghoul face towards the camera in what is clearly a scene that was added late in the movie, because it has literally no point. It is there because they didn't want the first appearance of Blackheart to be him showing up at this bar for some reason. My next note was, why does Blackheart want to go to this bar so bad? He's a demon. He doesn't need sustenance. Why does he so desperately want to go into this bar? So this is our first exposure to the actually kind of okay CGI in the movie, which is the like him draining the life out of people, which is
I thought that was pretty well done.
like the
Yeah.
like the eyes kind of going. That looks all right.
It kind of creeped me out a little bit. I won't lie.
And it's like, okay, that looks all right. Right. So now we get back to Johnny Blaze, where we see his lavish apartment, which I have a better note on later. His apartment, which has a garage in it and an elevator, which for some reason it's important that he never locks. We'll get to that later. So yeah, my note here is Johnny Blaze has a crippling jelly addiction, and what is the story with the fucking monkeys? Because the second that he gets into this place, he's like, I need to calm down, and then he turns on the classical music, and he sits down in his chair and turns on the TV, and there is a video of monkeys doing kung fu, doing karate. There's karate monkeys.
He's literally pointing and
He's
laughing.
pointing and laughing at the monkeys on
Like,
TV,
yeah,
like
that's
he has
so
lost his
funny.
fucking mind.
His friend goes up and turns it off.
And then, yeah, our friend character turns it off, and he's like, "Don't turn off my monkeys, man," and that's it. And then I just wrote the next note, which was, this accent is inconsistent at best. Yes, so the teeth chattering actually appears in this scene. It's the skeletons come on TV here. But because for some reason there's two scenes of him watching TV in a row. Right. So now my next note is, why does Blackheart just want to kill random people? What is Blackheart's goal? He just goes around killing people and doesn't really do anything.
There's no real motive. He kind of gives a hint towards it at the end of the movie, but I still don't know.
Like, typically in the comics, the idea is that Blackheart wants to overthrow Mephisto and rule over Hell. In the comics, specifically, it's not Hell explicitly. The idea is that it's a dimension. It's another dimension which may as well be Hell. That's their descriptor of it, and that's where Mephisto brings the souls that he has collected, as he puts them in what is ostensibly Hell. Mephisto is a shapeshifter in the comics, so it makes a reasonable amount of sense that he could have a form where he just looks like a man, but that is the only form you see in this movie. There is a shadow which he has of being a weird gremlin, but that is it. So in the comics, Blackheart's goal is to overthrow Mephisto and take over Hell. That's basically it. He's pretty simple. But like it's weird. Like in this, they both want the MacGuffin, but Mephisto isn't really all that interested in the MacGuffin. He just wants Ghost Rider to kill Blackheart.
Yeah.
And that's sort of weird because they bring up the MacGuffin, the scroll, the contract, as being a thing that Mephisto really should want, but he doesn't. He doesn't really give a shit, even though he gets screwed out of it in the flashback at the start of the movie. So my next note is, who the fuck are these losers? Because we're in the bar and we're introduced to the other demons who I think have names, but they're never spoken without heavy voice modulation.
Yeah, they got like voice changers on.
They've
whole
all got
thing,
weird, crazy voice
and they
modulation.
completely clear out the entire bar.
They kill everyone in the bar for some reason. And yeah, what's wrong with their voices? What is wrong with their voices? Why are they like that? This is also where I made a note of Mephistopheles because I was like, huh? Wait, that's because this is the first time they say it in the film.
Yeah,
Um,
they don't even say Mephisto.
it's just really strange. It's really weird. So, right, now we go back to Johnny Blaze, and he's getting ready to do his next stunt. And so we just get a hard cut from that previous scene to him just standing and looking at himself in the mirror with sunglasses on. And I made a list here of the weird shit that he's doing in this scene. He's staring at himself looking in the mirror with his sunglasses on, completely expressionless. He's got that one song on in the background, which I can't remember the name of. And then he drinks boiling coffee in this scene.
Yeah, he downs the whole
Pot
of
of
it.
boiling coffee. Because you hear the sizzling noise when he's drinking it. They added that noise in. I have to think that some of the weird shit that he does in this film is Nicolas Cage's idea, because there's stuff like him doing this. There's a scene later in the movie of him looking at himself in the mirror and doing weird shit, and it's like,
Very
yeah,
scares
we'll get to
her.
that. We'll get to that. But like just weird shit throughout the whole movie of him doing, and it's like it has to be like Nicolas Cage is like, oh well, he's got like fire powers, right? He should be able to do this. He should be able to drink boiling coffee. That's what I would do if I had like heat based powers. And it's like, okay, it's in the movie. Like that's the kind of level that we're dealing with. It feels like here. All right. Next, we get a very funny shot of a whip pan to Eva Mendes showing up. It literally does a whip pan around, and then she's there, and it's like, all right. Also, there's no one else in that hallway that she's in.
Yeah, and also, how
It-
does she hear the character talking from that far away?
From that far away, she's in this completely empty hallway where all the other reporters are like all around him everywhere. And
And
so,
she just managed to
so they,
eavesdrop from there.
they do the interview, and it's really weird and awkward. And so my note here is, what's wrong with his voice? What is wrong with his voice? Because he's just doing weird shit with his voice in this scene as
Trying to do
well.
the accent.
And it's just he's just failing so
It's a
bad.
mix. It's like Tom Hardy trying to do the American accent.
Oh god, there is a weird connection to Venom we'll get to during this movie, and it's not just Aviard. That's only one of them because this is a Sony film. This is a Sony picture.
Weird connection to Venom.
We'll get to that. Not to in not too long either. So after that interview is done, we get a wide shot on him for a second, and I made a note here of, wait a minute, does he have a fucking flame-coated cane? And the answer is yes, he does. They never draw explicit attention to it, but while he's in the dressing room, it is handed to him, and I didn't think much of it. I was like, oh, that's probably just something that he's going to do something with. But that's a flame-coated cane. Like he's fucking Guy Fieri. And it's like, why? Again, this is more of the stuff where I'm like, was this Nicolas Cage's idea? It must have been, because it's just
Yeah.
fucking weird. Next
And the
note.
cane. I don't even like the cane was very insignificant because he only has.
He
for,
only
like,
has
a
it for that
minute or
one
two.
scene. He never uses it ever again. He never has it for the rest of the film.
Yeah.
So my next note here was, damn, this movie has a lot of music in it. It's almost as if it was directed by the same guy who did Daredevil. So we get his next stunt. I didn't even make any notes on it because it's like kind of blinking your miss it. He does the stunt. He jumps over the helicopters, and then he drives immediately out into the highway. And then we get this goofy highway nonsense of him doing tricks
And
on
he-
the road.
Yeah.
And then Like, I just
Swerves in the traffic.
I barely made any notes on this scene because I was just like, I don't care. I don't care. These romantic scenes are fucking dreadful. I don't want
Yeah.
to watch them. Please just cut away.
After going through that painful romantic scene, though, it
Oh
was
no,
pointless anyway.
there's more. There's more notes that I have here. Why are there just cows everywhere in this scene?
It's America, bro. They're in
But
Texas.
they're everywhere.
You ever been to Texas before?
No, I haven't. Neither of
Oh,
you.
No, and they don't have cows everywhere there anyway.
I can't imagine it's a very good landscape for cows because there's not much grass.
No, it's just fucking dirt and rocks.
And so, yeah, I was like, these people have no chemistry. This is terrible. The next scene we get is Blackheart and his jabronis wandering around a train yard because that's where they think the cemetery with the scroll is. But this is also the last scene in the movie where the first and last scene in the movie where these guys actually look for the scroll.
Yeah,
They never look for it again. Like, Caretaker has it.
yeah.
And Blackheart knows who the Caretaker is.
He just doesn't.
But he never goes after him. He knows who
decide
he
to
is, and he presumably knows how to find him. But
He just doesn't act on it. He's
He
just
just
like,
doesn't-
let me waste time for like.
I guess he thinks that this whole cockamamie scheme of getting Ghost Rider to bring him the scroll is a better idea. Like,
Instead of going to where it is.
and also the reason why he wants the scroll is fucking idiotic, but we'll get to that later. So right. God, where was I? So yeah, and I was just like, what is wrong with the fucking voice modulation? Because they have the voice modulation again in this scene, and it's so bad you can barely understand what the fuck they're saying most of the time.
Yeah, especially the one that does he control the wind? He's got long hair.
He gets killed first. Oh no, he doesn't get killed first. It's like I don't even think
The
they
other
show
guy
you
gets killed first.
the bald guy. They don't even show you what his powers are. They
Yeah,
don't
no,
show you
he
him
just
doing
dies.
anything.
He drives a truck into.
That's his
Ghost
power.
Rider.
He drives trucks.
He spawns them in and drives them.
I'm the truck demon.
Truck man.
I control trucks.
I'm
What?
the Michelin man.
But the comedy is, it's like they all have their they're like all elemental. Of where you've got the wind guy, you've got the water guy, you've got the truck guy.
Yeah,
The
you
four
know,
elements.
The one element truck. The six-wheeler of death.
Like when he dies, he turns into rocks. Is he supposed to be like Earth? Is that his element?
Rockman.
We don't see him do anything, so maybe he's got a leather jacket. Is that his element? Is leather? Logically, that'd be Ghost Rider's element, though, if not fire. Because he's like the fucking Terminator. He always has to be decked out in leather.
Yeah.
But yeah, so right. I'm skimming a little bit here because we get random bits. The fucking Johnny Blaze and Roxanne are going on to go on a date, and this is stupid. The structure of this here is we see her first at the restaurant, and he's
Yeah.
already not there. And it's like, that's weird. You would logically show the scene of him doing something first and then cut to her in the restaurant, and it's like, oh no, he's late. Because you don't get that. You get her first, then you get him, and it's like, what the fuck is he doing? He should know he's late by now. He's not
Yeah.
like having any problems yet. But we get the scene of her in the restaurant first, and she's got an 8-ball. She's got a magic 8-ball, and she shakes it, and then puts it back away. My only assumption is that they put Eva Mendes in the scene, and they said, just do stuff and we'll film it, and then we'll intercut
yourself.
this. This is B-roll. We're gonna put this throughout the film, or not throughout the film. We're gonna put this throughout this sequence, and we just need you doing stuff, various things. We don't need you doing anything in particular. Just talk to the waiter once or twice, and then drink and look at the 8-ball.
Shake it again.
Like, sure, the magic 8-ball. And so then we cut back to Johnny Blaze, and he's just stood in his apartment looking at the window, or the mirror, his weird round window, or mirror, I mean, in the
Yeah.
bathroom, which again is part of this weird fucking apartment that he has. And then
And starts steaming.
then his hands turn red and start smoking. And so again, this is just weird shit. And so that's like the whole first act, basically, because we're at the end of the first act here now, of where Ghost Rider shows up, but we'll get to that in a second.
Yeah.
So we just got weird. The whole first act is just he does weird shit. We cut to one of the demons doing other weird shit. We maybe see Mephisto just kind of hamming it up.
Weird shit.
And then we occasionally see Eva Mendes doing weird shit. And it's just, what the fuck is this movie? Why are all of these people freaks? Why are they all like this? Why are they all this? That's right. My next note here was this is where the movie starts getting entertaining. So, note number 1, sentient bike. Because he hasn't even turned into Ghost Rider yet, and the bike has managed to get itself outside and turn itself on. We can only assume that this is Mephisto doing this, but they never explicitly say that. So you can only just assume the bike is sentient.
Pulling a prank on him.
So now we get the pointing again, of where he does the really dramatic one this time, of where he does it like this, like he really tilts his hand down when he's doing it, which is really weird. He's not even really pointing; he's just holding his arm in the general direction of Mephisto.
It's kind of like that.
It's a really lazy point. We can only assume this is maybe 6 takes in or something. His fingers had gotten tired.
Fucking camera.
My fingers are tired.
No.
But yeah, so there's some shit during this scene of Mephisto says some bullshit, says you gotta kill Blackheart and do shit, and the Johnny Blaze says no, and then Mephisto says, well, it doesn't matter what you say, you just do whatever I say now. So then we get a crash zoom in on his face, and his eyes bug out like that, and then he fucking pings off into the distance, and it's time for crazy bullshit. So right. Hey, Venom did this same scene with the bike, but worse. This is the other Venom connection I mentioned, of where we get a scene for just, again, more crazy bullshit, of where Johnny Blaze is out of control on this bike, flames are shooting out the back of it, and he is rocketing throughout the city, miscellaneous city. We don't know what city it is. It's one of the cities in Texas.
This city was a lot better, though. I mean, this scene was a lot better with the motorcycle.
So,
than Venom, because Venom goes on for so long.
It goes on
the
forever.
Actually, has to repeat.
It goes on forever, and it's just bad. And this is admittedly brief, and it does serve a purpose in a sense. It serves a purpose in literally getting him from point A to point B, and also the license plate on his bike literally explodes off, which is why the cops know to track him down.
It does a Back to the Future.
It does the Back to the Future joke of where, except I think they missed a beat, because whenever he's driving, whenever he passes the traffic cop, it doesn't show you what number it says on the speedometer that he's holding. It should say 666.
Yeah.
Why doesn't it say 666? It doesn't show you the number. It just explodes in his hand, and then he goes flying off the bike.
Because that would be too cool to do if they threw.
Oh no! It's not cool. Don't get me wrong. That is not cool. It's stupid as fuck. It would fit the movie, but they just don't do it. Actually, no. I made a mistake. This is now the scene of where they're in the train yard, because we see this man with a fucking lantern. The guy who's just on the watchman or whatever on the train yard, he has a fucking lantern.
And
like an 1800s lantern.
Graveyard.
What fucking year is it? He's like,
ever have a flashlight?
We just saw a cop on a motorbike.
And he's walking like this.
This guy isn't even that old.
No, he looks like he's in his 40s.
I don't know. And anyways, we're fucking just gonna skim over a few bits of bullshit. Then we get the transformation scene, which is the best part of the film. Easily the best part of the film.
Scene.
And the CGI in the scene is pretty good. Of where you see his skin melting off and his fingers start falling to pieces. He gets flung off the bike and his face is all messed up. And then the smoke starts coming out of his eyes and all this shit. And so then his skin melts off and he gets a big flaming skull. And I was like, hey, the CGI is still pretty good, actually. I remember this looking good at the time, and it actually does look pretty. It looks pretty good. It doesn't look bad. It doesn't look bad at all. Ghost Rider CGI in this film's pretty decent. It looked pretty good.
Yeah.
It doesn't look bad at all. But yeah, then we get the pointing again. Generic ass dialogue, and he just Ghost Rider points at him. So here's the thing that happens a lot in this movie: is Ghost Rider talks a lot. Actually, I didn't remember him speaking all that much in this film at all. He has a lot of
Yeah.
dialogue, a surprising amount, and I don't know if it's Nick Cage delivering it and they just modulated it or not. I have no idea. I couldn't tell you if it's Nicolas Cage delivering the dialogue and then they just modulated it to all hell because it is unclear. But yeah, it's fucking. It just he delivers weird generic ass dialogue and one liners, and he also laughs a lot. He does a weird like cackle all the time
Yeah.
when he's driving away, which I can understand. A lot of the visuals of Ghost Rider driving in the comics typically have him like with his mouth open and like driving it really fast and the flames flying back on his head. So I can understand why you might interpret that in a movie to be him like cackling. Um, so yeah, Ghost Rider v Truck. Truck wins, I guess. Guy runs over him with a truck. Ghost Rider punches half his face off. It's like, okay.
Then Truck loses?
And then he's got a weird. Ghost Rider has a weird voice. Ghost Rider delivers more generic ass dialogue. He says, "Oh, I'm all out of mercy." A thing which happens throughout this movie, which is a thing that I like in a lot of actiony films, is that Ghost Rider gets upgrades over the course of the movie. So obviously, whenever he first turns into Ghost Rider, he's not even got his bike yet proper. He turns into
Yeah.
Ghost Rider, and he tries to fight just with his hands, and then he gets flung up and hung on chains. Then he uses the chain as a weapon, and now he's got the chain. And then he gets his bike and he yells at it to make it evil. If you remember, he goes at the bike and he goes, "Bah!" and then it gets all skeletal and weird.
It's hellish.
And then he just starts driving around, and and this is where I just say, hey. Petty theft requires the soul suck. Apparently, petty theft is enough of a sin to require the penance stare.
Yeah. And get your fucking eyeballs burnt out.
You know. And conveniently, when the sun rises, he ends up at the grave of dead dad. Conveniently.
Yeah. I had a feeling when I saw that, like, he's definitely going to fucking his
That's like fair enough.
dead father.
It's a thing that movie does. It's a thing that movies do. Fair enough. Fine. Whatever. And so this is now where we start getting to the exposition. He wakes up in a little churchy room or whatever. He's dehydrated, which I was like, all right. But he wakes up and he's dehydrated, which I was like, okay, fair enough. He was literally on fire. He turned into a skeleton for a while, so fair enough. And so this is where I was like, okay, Sam Elliott does all the exposition. A bold choice. A bold choice. Because you don't know what the fuck he's saying most of the time. And so
Kind of
then,
like rumbling and mumbling for a majority of his dialogue.
and so then we get another scene of Nicolas Cage doing weird shit, where he goes back to his apartment after talking to Roxanne briefly. It's like, it's whatever, it's a throwaway scene. We get this, just whatever. And then he goes back to his apartment and he's doing more weird shit. He's just gotten out of the shower. He's very oily. And he now does the teeth chattering thing for some reason. And he's trying to
Funny.
spook. He's trying to spook the mirror, and he goes blah, 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 at the mirror, and that's a thing that he does.
Yeah. Hard watch.
And yeah, this is the point where I made a note saying I never realized how bizarre his apartment is until now. Because you see all the, like, these books and everything everywhere, and these giant like ornate tables, but then there's just like bikes over there. There's like books, giant tables, bikes. There also appears to be like no kitchen, no food, literally nothing in this place.
Yeah. He doesn't eat. Doesn't go to the bathroom.
Well, there's a bathroom. That's where his giant weird circular mirror is.
Oh, yes.
And there's apparently a shower in there somewhere.
Not a kitchen or anywhere to make food, really.
And so he starts reading these texts, and he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna try and shoot fire out of my hands." And so I don't know if Ghost Rider can normally shoot fire out of his hands. I'm no expert, but that does seem weird to me. Uh, Especially as just like a normal man. I don't know if you can normally do that. It's unclear to me.
Fire out his hands.
So we're about to get to some shocking scenes.
Yeah.
Because there's more romance plotline to go through. But I'm curious. Up to this point in the film, what are your notes? What have you got to say about this so far? What have your notes been? Because we're about halfway through the movie now. We're about to get to like the big middle film action sequence.
Let's see. I really took notes just about the whole like transformation scene and how cool that stuff was.
Mm.
But I kind of just put down that the CGI was kind of rubbery, but like it looked pretty cool. And then about the current scene now, with I commented on the apartment as well, how it's just broken motorcycles and a bathroom.
There's not much in there. It's a
There's
very
like
weird set.
two sofas. Isn't there a pool table in there? I remember.
I think no, that was in the like trailer or whatever at the start of the film.
And yeah, and then so I have it's kind of a funny scene, and what I wrote down, it's funny the way he explains why he didn't show up to the date.
Because that's the scene we're getting into now, and I
Yeah.
mostly just say, okay, these people have zero chemistry. That's mostly all I have to say about that scene. And I was
didn't
like,
show up. Why? Because I transform into a skeleton man,
and again,
fiery haired.
the way that he explains this is the worst way that you could ever explain this.
Yeah.
And it's like it's clearly supposed to be funny. It's supposed to be a comedy scene. And it's like I was like, okay, fair enough, it's fine. It's like reasonably comedic. I didn't laugh, but you know.
It just
This is all these romantic scenes. They're just dog shit. They're just terrible. They're just insufferable. They're so bad. Like, and it's
gets worse. Gets worse.
so now we get effectively Roxanne leaves, and then literally like 2 seconds later, like
Yeah,
three
all
cop
of-
cars show up. All of
Yeah.
Texas's cops show up. They were busy committing police brutality, but now they're back.
Yeah.
And what's
But,
weird is that, like, Roxanne could have heard all the cops showing up by that point, but she doesn't turn around. She doesn't, like, go, like, are they fucking arresting him? Like, nothing happens. She doesn't think about it. And it just leaves.
She put her earphones in and she
Just
got in the
like-
car. and-
Yeah, it would have actually been funny if they cut back to, like, a POV shot, or not even, like, a shot of her, and you see all the cops showing up, and
Behind, yeah.
and she's just, like, in the back of the
Jamming
car.
away.
Like, just,
Yeah, and then why? He's in the interrogation room
so,
because
I was
they
like,
arrest him.
I don't even know if he's convincing himself in this interrogation. Like,
I didn't kill him.
it's like
I
the
didn't kill
way,
anyone.
I don't know if it's just the way that he's delivering the lines, but it's like, God, it's so bad. Like everything
Yeah.
about, and then there's all the weird shit of where like the guy tries to light the cigarette and the fire shoots towards Johnny Blaze, and it's like he's like, that was weird. It's like all this weird shit, like just the way he's delivering the lines, just really strange. The general setup of the scenes, really strange. And the cops are doing like the fucking thing of where they're like slamming the desk and they're like, we know you did it. They don't have shit. They found his license plate in a different fucking street to where the actual crime was committed, of where man was turned into dust. That takes or Lantern Man got ghouled. That took place in
They're
the train
like, "Oh,
yard.
fuck,
They
he
have
might done it."
nothing. They have no fucking proof that he was anywhere near the train yard. And also conveniently, after we're done with the ensuing sequence, the cops forget about him for the rest of the movie.
Yeah.
They never make any attempt to go after him again after this sequence that's coming up.
Yeah.
They just forget. But yeah. So like, okay. The jail scene is a good setup for this sort of thing, where they've established that Johnny Blaze will turn into Ghost Rider when he's surrounded by evil or it's nighttime. And because it's been nighttime for a while now and he's not just turned into Ghost Rider, we can assume that the only thing that's going to turn him into Ghost Rider right now is going to be being around evil. So I guess also everyone in this jail, apart from that one kid that he says is innocent, we can assume that everyone else in here is in this gigantic jail cell for something bad. Also, the big cell thing, they typically wouldn't put multiple people in the same cell unless they're like drunk. If you're gonna have like a bunch of violent people, you're not gonna put them all in the one cell.
A bunch of murders.
A bunch of people who are like violent people, you're not gonna put them in the one cell. You're gonna separate them.
Yeah.
But they've put all the violent people in the one cell, and there was an observation which I made of where one of them is like, "Oh, now you're just a monkey in a cage," and I just thought to myself, typically this version of Johnny Blaze should turn around and be like, "Monkeys, monkey, you say?
I love monkeys.
I love monkeys. Have you seen the video of the monkey doing karate? I love that one. It's my favorite one.
It's so funny. He do that.
You got any jellies, perchance?
I
got the wine glasses right here."
But instead, he just does something cooler.
And so now we get more bad slow motion of the shuddery, stuttery slow motion because they all start going over him and beating him up like that.
Yeah.
And then he explodes into Ghost Rider. And again, a little CGI thing which I liked is that the sprinklers come on and you see the fire on his head go a little dimmer. And I was like, hey, that's cool. And so he steals that one guy's jacket and he gets gloves. Again, Ghost Rider gets upgrades throughout the movie. He gets the new jacket, and then for some reason he can cause the spikes to shoot out of it.
Yeah.
I don't know why he can do that. And also on the gloves.
It looks cool, but it makes
That's what he
sense.
can do, I guess. That's inside, just rolled into Ghost Rider's powers. He can enhance the clothes that he's wearing with spikes.
But doesn't he get his ass handed to him here after and during this bit?
I don't think.
Or am I
You
mixing
might
that up?
you might be jumping forward or backward because there was the scene whenever he first turns into Ghost Rider where he gets rinsed pretty quickly by Blackheart. He gets thrown onto the chains, then he gets hit by a truck, and then he kills a man, and that's basically all he does in that first sequence. But yeah, so he's turned into Ghost Rider now again, and then we cut to Blackheart, who. Here's the thing now. I guess Blackheart could just go into churches. We got to him in a church, even though they explicitly said that the demons could not set foot on hallowed ground.
Yeah.
He's in a church. Why is he able to go into the church? I hypothesized that maybe it's just a really shitty church. God doesn't like this one very much, so he's like, you know what?
He's
Fuck
standing on a
these
carpet.
guys.
He's technically not touching the ground.
He's it's like in Pirates of the Caribbean. He's in a bucket of water. He's bending the rules.
Yeah.
But yeah. So, and I'm assuming that's supposed to be their reason for why he knows about Caretaker, but he can't go after him is because the cemetery's on hallowed ground. But surely the church would also be on hallowed ground. Anyways. But also, if he already knows about Caretaker, then why is he searching for the scroll if he already knows where it is? If he already knows, presumably, who knows where it is? And if Caretaker knows where it is, presumably it's because he has it, which he does. So why would you even bother doing the whole search at that point? Like, we could pretty easily tell where the scroll is. By this point in the movie, you're clearly supposed to assume it's in Carter Slade's grave. That's where the scroll is, that you would assume, because they've shown that grave multiple times, but it's not in the grave.
Yeah.
Meaning them showing you the grave constantly is literally pointless. There's no reason for it. It's just there as a misdirect for some reason. But yeah, anyways. So now we got back to Ghost Rider, and there's a crash zoom on a man's face, and then Ghost Rider does a jump over his head on the motorbike. And then a cop hits him with his nightstick,
Breaks his jaw,
and then he
yeah.
fixes his jaw, and he does this weird pointing shit again. He does the pointing, and then the sign nearby explodes, and where it previously said garage, because for some reason you would have a neon sign that would say garage,
Yeah.
it now says rage, because
Ooh,
vengeance
angry.
is a synonym
Angry.
for rage, as we all know. And also it turns orange now for some reason. It was previously like a kind of reddy color, but the neon has turned orange. Who knows why that happened? It's unclear. So now we get the obligatory police chase sequence, which is in all of these movies. It's important to note that Batman Begins came out 2 years before this film. So, there are points in this film where it feels like they're kind of just making up what Ghost Rider can do. This is one
Yeah.
of those scenes, because he drives to the top of a bridge and then drives off into the water after he's been surrounded by the cops. Then we see the water starts to bubble. He rises up to the top of the water and can just drive on top of the water. He flips off the cops and then drives on water.
Yeah.
And starts cackling away into the distance. And I just put a note here after that saying Ghost Rider is not subtle. He literally leaves a trail like he's driving a fucking Tron bike around. So he is the easiest man on earth to track, but yet the cops continually lose him during this chase. Then he drives to the top of a building, because he can drive up walls as well during this sequence. That's fair enough. I feel like that's not like that. I feel like amongst after we've seen him drive on water, I'd be surprised if he couldn't drive on walls at that point. But we do a crash zoom on his face before he drives up the wall. So he drives up the wall, and then he fights Windman, and he tries. So he fights Windman, and he tries to grab him. And he tries to grab him with the chain, and then he kills him. I think, or no, I'm skipping slightly ahead actually, because first he gets to the roof, and then a helicopter shows up, and he says "Yeehaw," and uses his chain as a lasso,
and
and
Ben
grabs.
says that he's pissing him off.
Says you're pissing me off, and they can apparently hear each other.
Yeah, I was wondering with that bit. Like,
They can apparently hear each other. And the guy just flies away. So, also...
Like, okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Looked kind of bad for him, poor guy.
So, yeah, then he kills Windman after Windman says, you can't catch the wind. But my note here was, you can't catch the wind, but I guess you can burn it. Because Ghost Rider's solution to not being able to catch Windman is that he turns his chain hot and then just spins it at him and he dies.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Also, a prevailing theme throughout this...
Kills the wind, of course.
A prevailing theme throughout this movie is that these, like, demon guys are fucking losers. They're absolute chumps. He kills all of them super easily. They do not pose any challenge. The fucking cops pose more of a challenge to Ghost Rider during this sequence than Windman does. He kills
They
him.
light him up.
He kills Windman instantly. He kills fucking the first guy instantly. And then, like, the rest of the guys, he also kills instantly as well. They are not hard to kill. So, yeah, he then drives off the roof, and there's all these people gathering around at the bottom, including Roxanne, because she's realized that, oh, wait a minute, Johnny Blaze did tell me... He did tell me that he turns into a monster. He didn't tell me he turned into a flaming skeleton. That might have been more specific. But, so she's kind of going out on a limb here, that this is him. But I suppose he is wearing the exact same clothes he was wearing earlier on in the day, so I mean, you know, it's fair to assume.
Who would have guessed?
But yeah, so he drives down the building, and there's all these people and cops down there. Also, the cops don't stop Roxanne from getting literally right next to them, which you would think they would, because she's a civilian, and also a reporter.
Yeah.
So you'd think that she'd be stopped.
Yeah, no.
There'd be some sort of barrier set up by this point.
They let her walk forward to this fucking, like, this flaming man.
demon.
Or a flaming skeleton demon.
A flaming skeleton. They, and also, by the way, all these people have been severely lacerated by falling glass. Because when Ghost Rider drives back down the building, all the windows explode, shooting glass, raining glass all over this crowd of people, meaning they're all literally sliced to pieces.
Yeah.
But they're not.
No, it's because they have plot armor. The
and
glass mirror just shatters once it hits their soft human skin.
it oxidizes. But yeah. So here's another thing which is weird, is that whenever Ghost Rider sees Roxanne, his flame turns blue.
Yeah.
Except, here's the thing: their idea on that, their thought process is clearly, oh yeah, it goes blue because it's like he's calming down, because blue is a cooler color than orange. But
Yeah.
also, blue fire is hotter.
Yeah.
Blue fire is hotter than orange fire.
Maybe it's the love.
But that's not what their intention is. Clearly
Love-
not, because the
love
music is
burns.
the music has become soothing, briefly for a second, and
Still
also his face is sad. You can tell because the skull changes to a weird fucking shape for a second. His head turns blue for a moment, and then he gets lit up, and he shoots fire out of his hands at the cops. Not actually hurting anyone apparently,
No,
because
it still
fire
looks cool though.
fire known for not hurting people. Doesn't hurt anyone. Shoots fire out of his hands towards them, and they're fine. He then goes back to the. He then goes back to the graveyard and talks to Caretaker more. And so I just wrote again more Sam Elliott exposition. Very bold indeed, because this is the point where I was like, I do not know what this man is saying. I
Yeah.
have no fucking idea. I'm catching a
He's
word or
just doing
two
marbles.
every now and then, but fuck me, he delivers every line of exposition in this movie. Like, there's very little bits of exposition delivered by Mephisto, but Peter Fonda's barely in this movie. So I mean, he's got an end credit for God's sakes. He's not in very much of it. But yeah, so we get a bunch of exposition about the scroll or whatever, I think, during that scene, maybe. I don't really remember. Oh yeah, he tells him that you got to be careful because they know who you are now.
Yeah.
And so we then get another thing of this man needs to lock his elevator. He, for some reason, does not lock basically his front door, and he is a celebrity. What does he think is going to happen? Because Roxanne just wanders in, Donald Logue is in there, he gets spooked, and then he shows her the books. And I just wrote, I'm glad all these books have pictures, because otherwise I wouldn't know what's going on as a stupid audience member. Conveniently, all these books have pictures. And they're all pictures of, like, the weird naked demons. And that's
Yeah.
supposed to be inferring to us something, I'm sure. Because the irony is that even though I made the note about the movie condescending us as the audience by having all the pictures are not clear and they don't help you understand what's happening at all. You're just supposed to
Yeah.
infer that she now knows what a Ghost Rider is.
I didn't even know what the pictures were.
The
when I was
pictures
in
are
there.
incredibly unclear. Like, what are
very.
they supposed to be saying to you? And
Yeah.
so she says, "Oh Jesus!" And then Blackheart shows up and he's like, "Oh, you couldn't be further." It's like, "Fuck off." And so he kills Donald Logue, and we get another ghoul face.
A very, very.
We get another
bad-
ghoul face, and then we get there's a little scuffle between Ghost Rider and Blackheart, and so Johnny Blaze does not give a single shit that his single legally obligated friend character that must die in the movie has been killed. He does
Yeah.
not care. He looks, he's like, "Oh man," and then he just leaves.
Oh,
He
man.
looks at him. He's like, "Oh well."
Roxanne.
Emotions processing, time to leave. And then he sees that Roxanne has turned slightly blue. And then Blackheart shows up and goes oogie boogie at him. And then they have a little bit of a scuffle. He turns into Ghost Rider and he tries to do the soul suck. He tries to do the penance stare on him. But he's like, and this is again all important. This is very important. Chekhov's gun, setup and payoff. Of where he says, "I have no soul. You can't do that to me." And then he grabs him and turns off the fire on his head and makes him turn back to normal. And then says,
Nicolas Cage.
and he says, "Oh, you work for me now. Get that scroll, bitch." And then, yeah. That's it, really. There is a funny thing though that happens during this scene of whenever Ghost Rider tries to do the penance stare at him, he goes like, "Oh, oh," and it's like that's just kind of funny, I suppose. He kind of like fakes.
Kind of,
He
yeah.
fakes being
Like, oh,
penance
you're
stared.
getting me.
It's kind of funny. But yeah. So then, yeah, Ghost Rider goes to back to Caretaker. And he's like, "I want the scroll because I need it." And Caretaker is like, "Sure." Uh, and he breaks the shovel, and I was like, "Man, the shovel is a really bad place to hide that thing." Like, granted, he's always holding the shovel, but it's a really bad place to hide that thing. Like, if anyone, like, it's a flimsy shovel. He just throws it on the ground and it breaks. Or no, he hits it against a tree and it breaks. But it's like, it's not a sturdy shovel. And there's the all important world ending scroll that isn't particularly powerful, as the later scenes will show us. So now there's this whole fucking nonsense monologue that he has. But before that, fucking Ghost Rider says, "Oh, he might have my soul, but he doesn't have my spirit." And I'm like, fuck off. The soul and the spirit are the same thing. This is semantics. They're literally the same thing. If you look at the soul is, they're synonyms. They're the
Who
same
wrote the
thing.
script? Who wrote the
It
script?
was also Mark Steven Jansen. He writes all his movies.
That's a shame. But
It's
terrible.
not David S. Goyer, as much as that wouldn't be surprising. But yeah. So this whole monologue that fucking Sam Elliott has is total nonsense. Mostly because you cannot understand what he's saying. But
Yeah.
he says that making a deal with the devil out of love makes a difference, and that for some reason that puts God on his side and makes him unpredictable. Surely, love in every other movie that I've seen, love makes you do predictable things.
Yeah. of
And
course.
as a matter of fact, it literally does in this very same movie. Because Blackheart says, "I'm going to take your girl, and I'm going to hang out here, and you're going to bring me the contract in exchange." And Ghost Rider does exactly that. He exactly predicted what he was going to do. He could have literally like written it in the stars. He knew exactly what he was going to do, and he was correct.
Yeah.
So I mean,
You got the thing.
and I mean, Blackheart's plan went off without a hitch. It just so happened that the power that he got from the scroll was dog shit, but we'll get to that. And so, yeah, then I wrote, and here's the scene that got butts in the seats.
Yeah.
Because this was the thing that they put at the end of every one of the trailers. His Caretaker turns into another Ghost Rider. Because it's like, oh, he was Carter Slater all along. No shit. But this also raises the question of, wait, how old is he? Because they explicitly tell you that the flashback from the very beginning of the movie where it's in the Old West is like over 150 years ago. How fucking old is Sam Elliott supposed to be? Does being Ghost Rider make you immortal? He never mentions that as being one of Ghost Rider's powers. Is it the contract? It can't be because he's never used it.
Maybe they just don't age. Maybe he got it when he was a.
But in the flashback at the start of the film, he's young.
Oh,
So it's not like he was old then.
he was just like super old.
And right, so okay. This is a wallpaper waiting to happen. You get Ghost Rider on the bike and Ghost Rider on the horse riding next to each other. The sky is red for some reason in this scene. Doesn't matter, it looks cool. That's the only reason
Yeah,
this is in the
it does look
movie.
cool.
It looks cool. The CGI looks pretty good. And then they play the movie's theme song, which actually only plays in this scene. Even though it's the theme song of the movie.
Slaps.
It's the theme song of the movie. It's got the fucking cowboy gallop in the background with the guitars. But during this scene, while they're riding, a lizard spontaneously combusts at the side of the road, and I was like, I guess that lizard had evil in its heart.
Yeah,
Uh,
it did. We had some horrible atrocities. Like, it ate like 3 caterpillars.
But as I looked up earlier today, according to the Bible, animals cannot sin. So technically, I did my research on this because I was like, can animals commit sin? This created an interesting thought in my mind. But no, according to the Bible, animals cannot commit sin. Only man
That's
can
right.
commit sin. So therefore, the penance there should not work on animals. But yet, I suppose you're supposed to infer that the sheer magnitude of righteous vengeance riding along this one dusty road literally causes all mammals to spontaneously combust in the nearby area. Um, but yeah. So then they reach the end of this road, and Caretaker turns back into a normal man, and we get probably the dumbest line of dialogue in this whole movie, which is, I could only change one more time, and I used it to help you. But at no point there did you say that you had to turn back before we got to the main bad guy,
And also,
and you
help
didn't
him
do
what, like,
anything.
go down the road.
It's like, you could have just told him where to go. It's a straight road. This is
Yeah.
Texas. All roads are straight for miles. Just say, go that way. That's it. You helped. But okay, here's my translation of this line. I brought this back from Daredevil. I could only change one more time, and I used it to try and look cool one more time. Blackheart's your problem, kid. See ya. That's basically it. Of where he's like,
Yeah.
here's a
I ain't
gun.
dealing with that shit.
Here's a gun. I wanted to look cool. We couldn't possibly have two Ghost Riders. That would make this far easier. And the thing is that they use Caretaker as like the mentor character in this movie, but he doesn't do anything. He doesn't teach
Yeah.
Ghost Rider how to do anything. Ghost Rider
Might
teaches.
say a few things at the cemetery, but that's about it.
He exposits towards him, and that is it. He has the MacGuffin, and he exposits. That is all he does, and he directs him at the end of the movie and gives him a gun. Like, Caretaker doesn't teach him how to like shoot fire. He figures that out on his own. He reads that in a book somewhere, and he can just do it now. All of Ghost Rider's powers, he just figures them out himself. It's not like Caretaker teaches him how to do it, and then he implements them himself.
Yeah, sure. He learns about the chain like right away.
He does that
Shot.
immediately. He figures out how to do this shit instantly. All his upgrades are stuff that he has figured out himself over time. It's stupid. But then we get the "Don't look into the water, Mr. Frodo" scene. Ghost Rider gets pulled into the water and instantly kills Waterman in his own element. All these demons are total fucking losers.
They're useless.
And then we get a crash zoom into the eyes whenever Ghost Rider meets back up with Blackheart. It does a crash zoom on Ghost Rider's eyes, does a crash zoom on Blackheart's eyes. And then my next note here was, what a great plan, Ghost Rider. Show up and get beat up while just giving him the scroll. And then I also wrote, was the contract even necessary? He just shouted at the souls when they showed up.
Yeah.
He doesn't do anything with the contract. He literally just opens it and then says, this is the contract, and then throws it away. And then he absorbs all the
Yeah.
souls.
And it's like, oh fuck, it worked.
And this is the thing. I was like, he doesn't seem to be enjoying this. He's getting all the souls in him. He's like, oh, and he's in pain. It's like, did you know this was going to happen? Surely you anticipated this. Do you not know what the?
What is it all?
Did you not know what the contract did? All I was told the contract did was hell on earth. Clearly, it's not doing that, because he's apparently turned into Legion now. Because he says, "I am Legion," or he says, "We are Legion," because we are many. Because that's one of those things the characters say.
Yeah.
He's Legion now, apparently, and he sort of looks like Blackheart now, but lamer, in that his skin is purple and he's got red eyes. That is what I mean when I say he looks like Blackheart now. He also gets like the sort of like cheeky spike things every now and then, ish. It looks weird.
I don't remember that.
It's well, I mean that's probably because you were watching the film 144p. Yeah. Like, he sort of gets them in, like, there's, like, a wibbly effect on his face, though. And whenever he's speaking, his mouth doesn't really move or whatever. It's weird looking.
Yeah.
So, yeah, now, this is remarkably similar to my mental collapse at the end of Fant Four Stick, of where I was like, they just fucking kill Doctor Doom instantly? So, what power did this scroll give him? He seems like a loser. He's not doing anything. Ghost Rider's just shooting him with a gun.
People Blue takes out their soul, and then Ghost Rider's like, you know what? Now that you have the sinful souls in you.
He had more power before. He couldn't be killed by Ghost Rider's penance stare. He couldn't be killed at all, seemingly.
Yeah, he
And
just made himself. He just shot himself in the foot.
and now he's got all these souls in him, and he is corporeal. And Ghost Rider shoots him, and he explodes and then reforms. So I was like, okay, is that his power? But he seemed invincible before. Like, is he invincible now? He seemed pretty unkillable before. What's the fucking story? So he'd reform after he's been shot, and he doesn't even have like any like mental abilities or like he can't do any like sorcery or anything. He doesn't have any demon powers. He just picks up and throws Ghost Rider around the place.
Yeah.
He could turn off his Ghost Rider powers before. He literally
He
slapped
broke
him back to Johnny Blaze in the earlier
Yeah,
scene.
he broke his back on the well.
He just throws him around and doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
But he broke his back on the well before he turned into this new version of himself. He hadn't used the scroll yet. Because he throws him into the sunshine, and that turns him back into Johnny Blaze. And again, in the prior confrontation they had in the apartment, he literally punches him back into being Johnny Blaze, and it's still nighttime. He was more powerful before, and now he has just given himself a weakness. And my last note on this was, what a fucking dumbass. He just made himself super weak by using the contract, and again, setup and payoff, he fucking does the penance stare on him, because he's got souls now. And I guess all these souls that he had in him are guilty, conveniently.
Yeah, every single one of them.
Conveniently, there is evil in those souls, because I suppose if he had absorbed a bunch of like good people's souls, Ghost Rider would have been like, well shit, I can't penance stare him. What am I supposed to do now? That's how you win demons. Get a good soul.
Mr. Blackheart dies.
And he's fucking dead. So
dies.
we get more pointing because Mephisto shows up. And so Mephisto's like, oh yeah, you don't have to be Ghost Rider anymore. You did your job. I'll just give somebody else the abilities and they'll do it. And for some reason he decides not to take that offer. That seems like a decent enough deal.
Yeah, like you go have a happy life. Have a family.
Like I understand the nature of his distrust for Mephisto at this point, but also Mephisto's typically like pretty straight up. So far in the movie, Mephisto asks him, "Kill Blackheart, then I'll undo our deal," and he kills Blackheart, and he's like, "All right, I'll undo our deal."
Yeah,
and he's like, "No,
I don't want to do that."
And I'm like, I don't really understand how he fucks over Mephisto by doing this. Surely Mephisto would want him to stay as Ghost Rider because that would make it super easy for him to manipulate him, right? Surely.
Like, that's
because
I don't know.
as Ghost Rider,
like,
his
why would
power
you, like,
comes from Mephisto.
Yeah, I was like, why would you give up a power like that, or even like request for them to give it up? Like, if they're doing your fucking
Like, unless it's a case where Mephisto's like, oh, he's too powerful, he's got God on his side, unless that's supposed to be the idea. But they only bring that up once. They mention this once in the movie of him having God on his side. So, you know, just dumb shit. Dumb, stupid bullshit. Yeah, like, we're basically at the end of the film here, and I literally have no idea. I even wrote again, I was like, how does doing his job screw Mephisto over?
Yeah.
How? It doesn't make any sense. And again, this
you
is...
just said you can't do things, and you're gonna pay for the choice, or this,
He's like, oh, and he gets angry and disappears, and it's like, huh? Why...
No.
Huh?
He's gonna be slightly annoyed about it and run off like a little 12-year-old toddler.
I don't get it. I don't understand. I don't get it. 12-year-old toddler. That's a pretty old toddler.
I mean, he acts like a toddler.
Yeah, he swings his arms and then just disappears. I feel like that I was gonna tie something back from earlier there. I'll put a note on the screen if I did just tie something back. I don't remember. I'm collapsing mentally. So then we get the conclusion to the romantic stuff, and then he's like, I'm gonna go off and be Ghost Rider more. And then he drives away. We get some more bad narration. And then we do a fucking weird cartoon crash zoom and smash cut to credits. We do this crash zoom on his face, which has got this weird perspective of him like this. And he does this weird like eyebrow raise, like he's a DreamWorks character, and then turns into Ghost Rider. But it's daytime.
Because he's become. I don't even know. And I can't even.
He already had control over it.
I'm
You're trying desperately to stay awake.
trying to stay awake, and I'm trying to like make sense of it all as well at the same time, and it's such a struggle. It's such a struggle.
Because like this
movie doesn't make sense.
This is the thing. The primary issue with this film is that it's completely fucking idiotic. Whereas Daredevil is stupid, and it's also just fucking like Daredevil's really dumb as a movie. It doesn't make any sense. This movie is stupid, but it's a lot more entertaining, I think. And Fan Four Stick is just boring as fuck.
Fan Stick, that upset me big time.
And that was also your choice, so you know. Got a good track record so far.
I'm not picking the movies for a while.
No, you're not picking the movie this time, but you will be again after this. So yeah, my closing thoughts on this are shockingly, I did not hate this movie. It was dumb as sin, and the romance plotline was one of the worst in any of these kinds of movies, but it was bizarrely entertaining. The Ghost Rider stuff was pretty fun, and actually not bad. Like it was pretty decent actually. And Nick Cage is always fun to watch, even though in this film nothing he does makes any sense. I was entertained.
Yeah, I'd say my conclusion is the movie was fun to watch. However, you know, there's a lot of pointless scenes in the movie, especially, you know, between Nicolas Cage's and Ava Mendes' character, and
They've just got nothing going on. There's
I just think
no
the point of having Mephisto in the movie,
he's barely in it, and he doesn't really do anything.
barely in it, but he's kind of pointless in the movie, and he's like, you can't do these things.
And it's like, why did you give him the ability to? This was in the contract. You literally gave him the ability to do this. Write a
No,
better
he's
contract, dumbass.
Reached the contract, and it's just like, foiled again. Damn.
I didn't expect him to just not do it.
I gotta get more parameters in here, more guidelines.
Why did I allow him to have free will? You're telling me
Yeah.
he was only out of control as Ghost Rider once? He figured out how to be in control immediately after that? God. This is a dumbass fucking movie, but you can sort of turn your brain off and enjoy it. When Ghost Rider's on screen, the movie's actually kind of good. The movie's
I'm
actually...
never gonna watch it again.
I've seen this movie multiple times. You made me watch it again, and I actually kind of enjoyed watching it.
Never gonna watch the sequel.
Well, that's good, because the sequel's even worse. The sequel has him doing even dumber shit, but as Ghost Rider. He pisses fire as Ghost Rider in that movie. It's a thing that he does.
It's kind of funny, actually.
He pisses fire at one point. It's not funny in the context of the movie. You're just kind of sat there like, that just happened.
I'm looking for anything. Save the franchise for me.
There's a bit in that movie where he interrogates someone by threatening to turn into Ghost Rider, and he starts just doing weird, goofy shit. There's a bit whenever he's driving on his motorbike and he's starting to turn into Ghost Rider, but they don't do like the cool transformation scene like this. They do like cartoon shit of where he like lunges towards the camera and like a bit of the skull pops out and then sinks back in, and then he's like, it looks like cartoon shit.
Yeah.
The CGI in that film is significantly worse because that movie was practically a straight-to-DVD movie.
Alright. Got no cinema time.
He's Ghost Rider in the day quite a lot in that movie. Ghost Rider looks interesting in the second film because the way that he looks is that he's got like his skull is like charred,
Yeah.
and it's not the fire on his head is like quite subtly orange. It's mostly like really dark smoke. The fire isn't like all that big. Of where it's like it's an interesting look, and like his jacket whenever he's Ghost Rider looks different because it's got like burn marks and stuff on it. So it's like, oh, he looks appreciably different as Ghost Rider. So it's like that's kind of cool, but that's kind of where it begins and ends for the movie. There's nothing all that interesting to it. It's like, he fights like fart people, I think. Like weird gas people, I think, is what he's fighting in that movie. I don't remember. There's angels in that one as well, so I mean, that's a thing, I guess.
That movie, I'll never get those 2 hours of my life back.
This was entirely your choice. But now we get on to the final part of this video. My choice.
Okay.
So you have caused me to suffer.
Yeah.
And you've caused me to suffer twice over at this point. Granted, I did enjoy watching this movie, but I didn't have to. I didn't have to watch this movie. This was not necessary. But my pick is a sequel to a film that we have covered already. It's not Elektra.
Okay.
I know that was where your brain was going.
Yeah.
Or to Ghost Rider 2, given that we were just talking about it. But it's not. Don't worry. We're covering Batman Returns next time.
Okay.
Which is a film which I deeply resent.
Okay.
It's not a good film.
I haven't seen it, but
No.
I will.
And I think you can probably infer where my brain is going for my next few picks here. But, you know. We'll just keep up the mystique for some reason. So yeah, we're doing Batman Returns next time, meaning you're going to have to sit through that movie.
Thanks.
It's a long-ass film.
How?
I don't remember how long it is. I think it's about 2 hours long. Because I tend to try and avoid going for like super long-ass fucking movies. I tend to prefer going for movies which are like an hour and a half long. But
2
I'm
hours
pretty...
and 6 minutes.
It's a full 2 hours. It's about as long as the first movie. The first movie is also 2 hours.
Oh, God.
But this is the thing. So Batman Returns is made by the same director. It's still Tim Burton. It's got the same writers. But none of those people actually liked the first film, as it turns out. Tim Burton didn't like the first movie. And the writers did not like the first movie either. So, yeah. They ended up creating a film which is built from a place of spite. Which never results in a good film.
Christopher Walken's in this movie.
Yeah. There's a lot of people in that film.
Danny DeVito.
So yeah. That's what we're covering next time. Now that is going to be our April movie. And, you know, it's a Christmas movie. But
Is it?
who cares? It's set at Christmas. It's set at Christmas, which does not make it a Christmas movie. But, you know, that said, I don't think anyone likes Batman Returns enough to consistently watch it every Christmas. So, you know. Anyways, that is... I think that's enough. That's enough. That was an hour and 40 minutes of mostly just talking about Ghost Rider. So, yeah.
That was well, that was good. Minus the fact that I fell asleep for a certain part of it, but you know.
Yeah, you were desperately trying to stay awake for that.
I'm gonna grab a coffee now and just power on through the next 4 or 5 hours.
Yeah. Anyways, I still
From
haven't
Ghost Rider.
I still haven't finished the recording.
Oh.
So I'll just cut some snippets out of that. So, yeah. Anyways, that's us. Goodbye.
Leave.
Oh God, I'm not looking forward to watching fucking Batman Returns. Yeah. Leave.
I'm sorry for being
Goodbye.
very low energy. I thought I'd be